Good morning and good afternoon, and thanks for listening in and watching our conversation today on densification. This is part of a report by Sense of Feeling in collaboration with RCR Wireless, and my guest today is Todd Cox, the product manager, marketing manager at Ascom Network Testing. Todd, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we start talking about densification, can you give us a little bit of background in terms of what Ascom is doing and what you are personally involved with?
Sure, yeah. So Ascom Network Testing has been around for several years, but really what we're known for at Ascom Network Testing are our TEMS solutions, our TEMS products and services. So for over a quarter of a century, we have been providing products and services in the network testing field to telecommunications, to the telecommunications industry, actually, including all of the top tier 1 U.S. operators. Some of those services, of course, have always been around the network testing area, but recently, as of earlier this year, we launched a new solution that focuses on the actual design and the deployment of small cell or even heterogeneous networks, including small cell deployments.
Right. And with densification, there is a huge amount, I think, of new challenging and new possibility for testing, because testing is becoming something different. But before we get to that part, we should define what is densification, because everybody's talking about it, but are we all talking about the same thing? So what is your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at densification is basically it's the means by which a carrier goes about improving the capacity of their networks, especially in densely populated areas. Densely populated areas and also large public venues. A lot of the capacity issues, as we know, capacity is driven by the demand of mobile users, especially the data demand these days. So as the data demand increases, the load is on the network. It no longer supports the capacity that they had originally planned it to support. It's now straining the network, and what happens is the coverage begins to shrink. People are dropped off, calls drop, the speed slows down, latency becomes an issue. So that's really what densification is all about. And the way that the carriers are going about doing this, of course, is through small cell deployments.
Absolutely. And the way they go, everybody has a different strategy on how to address the problem. But do you think that the drivers towards densifications, what are they? Are they the same across operators? What is it you're hearing from them?
Yeah, I mean, they really are the same. I mean, the drivers, let's face it, I mean, mobile data traffic specifically has increased exponentially and will continue to do so on into 2020, right? Much of that mobile data, actually 80% of that mobile data traffic is coming from indoors. And a lot of it is from, commercial and enterprise segments. We also have, so really when it gets down to the drivers, I mean, there are a few things I want to just kind of iterate here, right? In 2015, for example, 15% of mobile data traffic was from social media. But larger than that, 50% of it was from video. So video is going to continue to be a huge driver. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's going to continue to be a huge driver. The present day, really what it boils down to, Monica, is quality of experience. The whole purpose a carrier wants to go about, or even in partnership with an enterprise or a commercial segment, a hotel, for example, wants to improve its customer's experience, and part of that experience is, of course, its mobile data connection when they come indoors and when they go outdoors, right? So carriers are focused on quality of experience. And when it comes to quality of experience, it's been shown that the way that the customer evaluates their quality of experience is by speed, right? That's one of the ways. Another one is, I already mentioned video, but stalling during a video. We've all experienced that, right? Another one is the time that it's required to download a web page on my mobile device is very frustrating. And then you have the resolution of the video content as well as the responsiveness of a mobile app. So all of these things amount to one big key driver, which is quality of experience, in my opinion. And if you don't get the quality of experience right, whether you're a carrier or whether you're an enterprise or commercial segment, whatever it is you're doing, where you're wanting to provide the best possible network connected experience for your customers, if you're not doing that, you're going to churn. They're not going to cut. Tenants are going to leave your buildings. Hotel guests are not going to return. So it's a big thing for everybody, and everybody has a stake in it, not just the carriers.
Absolutely.
But there's also a near future piece of this, if I may. We all talk about 2020, right? Well, one of the near future pieces of this is that, as I mentioned, video outstrips mobile data traffic, and it's going to continue to grow tenfold by 2020. In fact, there's research that says about 3/4 of the mobile data traffic by 2020 is going to be video. That's globally, right? Some of the other challenges we've got to realize in the near future, and by near future, I'm talking in the next 4 years. So we don't have a lot of time to do this, right? We talk about improving the quality of the experience and expanding the network, improving capacity. We don't have a lot of time to do this. So around the corner, you've got, new apps and new mobile apps and services. You've got the Internet of Things in the near future. You also have smart cities. Smart cities are cropping up everywhere. One is in the San Diego area, for example, a completely new urban development, and it's all smart city based, where all the digital devices are connected and talking to the internet, talking to one another. Then you have the dense urbanization itself, right? So what that's creating is as the urban populations continue to explode, and as smartphones and smart devices continue to be adopted, and as Wi-Fi and 4G are continue to be used, what's going to happen by 2020 is you have this huge explosion of mobile data traffic and demand on the network. And if we're not prepared to support that through small cell deployments and other, Wi-Fi offload, carrier Wi-Fi, and other technologies, quality of experience is going to go downhill.
And with IoT, I think there is another thing that it's interesting, because we are moving even beyond quality of experience, because you might not even have a human at the other end. You typically don't have a human, but you do have a lot of different requirements and a huge number of devices.
Oh yeah, Gartner's predicting, by 2020, 25 billion connected devices. That's a lot of connected devices, right? So
yeah, well, we're going to get back to that, because then you have to the testing is going to be changed to accommodate all those devices. That's right. Now let us sort of go back up. So densification is basically small cells and other comparable solutions. But I think that what we are seeing, that increasingly there are different ways to go about it. That's right. So what is it operators are doing? Because so initially it was just lampposts, and now it's much more than that.
Yeah, right.
What are you seeing out there?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about densification, you're really talking about small cell deployment, as I already mentioned. But small cell deployment is anything other than a macro site, right? So small cell deployment includes, and we used to just say, well, it's a metro cell, it's a micro cell, it's a pico cell, it's a FEM2 cell, and we limited it to that because those were different types of base stations, right? But actually, CommScope and others and us, we've come to define small cell as encompassing any access node, right? So it's not just the metro cell and pico cells. Now it's about indoor DAS, it's about outdoor DAS, it's about heterogeneous networks, which are really hybrid network solutions that combine multiple rack technologies, right, as well as multiple access node types, such as got ahead of myself there, such as IDAS and ODAS. Right. So, but Wi-Fi is a part of that too, and not just enterprise Wi-Fi. We're also talking about carrier Wi-Fi now these days, and all of that is part of a small cell deployment, depending on the need that's been identified by the carrier.
Right, and so, and how do you help operators deal with all this? Their networks are really becoming more complex.
Right.
So your work is becoming also more complex, and how can you help them? Yeah,
so we at Ascom Network Testing, we have a number of solutions that really help carriers densify their networks. networks or with their densification efforts, right? One of them is in just identifying the need itself. We have TEMS Pocket, for example, is probably one of the most popular of our solutions for testing. But we also have TEMS Pocket Remote. So TEMS Pocket is one where I can go in and I can do a one-time test, right? I can test either a drive test or a site survey, indoors or outdoors, and I can get an idea of how the network is performing at that moment in time at that particular location or across those particular location parameters, right, that I've defined. TEMS Pocket Remote really comes into play here, probably more than even TEMS Pocket by itself, in that TEMS Pocket Remote is a stationary testing product. Basically, it's an approach to testing the network over a period of time at the same location. So if I want to know, at any point in the city or multiple points in the city or multiple points indoors or around the buildings, and I want to know, okay, how is the network performing over a period of time? That will give me an idea of the capacity, right? Any capacity issues. It'll also help me identify any not spots, any hot spots, things like that. And then we match that with TEMS Discovery, and TEMS Discovery allows us to analyze that data and look at it geospatially and begin to identify where those areas exist and what type of events are taking place to cause the issues that we might identify with TEMS Pocket. So that's the network testing piece. That's where we come into play. So it's really part of identifying the need, right? But then it's more than identifying the need. That's where we've always played. We played in identifying the need, identifying the problem areas. But with the launch of TEMS iBuildNet earlier this year, we've now stepped more into the game of not just testing to find out where the problems are and what the problems are, but now how do we design a solution that addresses those problems? So TEMS iBuildNet is that solution.
And that is interesting, because at the very beginning, the idea was most solid is that you go and put it wherever you want and it will work, right? There will be no problem, like you do with a Wi-Fi access point. It turns out that that's not like that. You have to plan for it. You need to, in the same way that you do for macro, except that there is a macro too. So if you have a quick panel deployment, it's actually more complex than macro because you have the 2 layers or multiple.
Yeah, multiple layers, right? Yeah.
So, from a testing point of view, that must be a nightmare, isn't it? How do you, because there is much more complexity. How do you deal with that?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a nightmare. I mean, TEMS Pocket and TEMS Discovery both allow us to look across, multiple RATs at the same time. Really, it's not anymore about testing. It is really now about, planning and designing the solution for the network. And that has to be planned and designed based on what the carrier, so that if they go out and do the testing, they already have something in mind. They've identified problems, or they've had customers calling them. Their network team has been identifying specific areas, right? But it's when they can say, okay, these are the capacity targets that we want to achieve in these areas. These are the coverage holes that we have. These are the areas indoors and outdoors that we need to partner with enterprises to make a better quality of experience for our subscribers and for their customers. It's really the planning design part of it. That's, again, where TEMS iBuildNet comes into play. And you can do that. You can do simultaneous multi-rat design and simulations. And then as a result, what you'll have are simulation measurements. What we have actually found, Monica, is that with the automated simulation capabilities of TEMS iBuildNet, it has been proven to be within 5 dBm margin of error with actual network measurements once the solution's been deployed. So that's critical as well. Yeah. But back to the multiple, the kind of what you were saying at the beginning, it is important to make sure that you're not overdoing your design, not overdoing your network. You don't have just throw an access node out there and say, or 10 or 15 of them and say, well, boom, this is going to work. Or a small cell on a lamp post when you may not need it on that lamp post, right? You may need it on the, a park bench down the road or on top of a building. So that's where the planning and design comes in. And with TEMS iBuildNet, it's not just indoor. TEMS iBuildNet allows you to design hybrid indoor and outdoor outdoor to indoor, or just indoor, or just outdoor networks.
And I think that that's important because it's a trade-off. So you can put the infrastructure in, as you say, you don't want to use a lamppost if you don't need it.
That's right.
And similarly, you want to understand, is it indoor or outdoor, so that I can go, oftentimes they might do both. The question is what's better. And I guess that you offer sort of a 360-degree type of approach where you can plan, execute, and test, and then go back and see what is that we need, how to augment.
That's it, exactly. You know, I mean, carriers don't have money. I mean, one of the things I hear from carriers over and over again when I've been out at trade shows and talking with them, the one thing I hear over and over from them, as well as enterprises and commercial segments, is nobody has the money, right? So everybody's strapped. There are budget constraints. And with those budget constraints, who has time to not just location, right? But is it the right type of solution, right? Do I need a small cell, or do I need a DAS system? Do I need DAS, or do I need Wi-Fi, or do I need both? And where should I place them to make sure that my network is going to perform to the target expectations that I've planned it to perform, and meet those QoE expectations, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what TEMS iBuildNet will do.
Yeah. Now, sort of going back to the technology that we have for densification, there are some new developments out there. So it's a moving target, right? So there's always new things that are happening.
Right.
What is that you see coming up that is relevant to operators, and I guess to you as well, to develop the tools to deal with it?
Sure. You know, LTE-U is probably one of the ones that's going to continue to evolve. Obviously, what we're looking at there is a competition between the carrier and enterprise Wi-Fi, right? So a Mobile Broadband Alliance is certainly concerned about the carriers entering into that 5 gigahertz space where Wi-Fi has played. And understandably so. So some of the solutions that are coming up are going to be hybrid scenarios where carrier Wi-Fi and enterprise Wi-Fi play nicely in the same sandbox. So we have to certainly include that within how we not only test but also how we design a network. So that's one of the future things. The other one is, of course, 5G is a big one. We've all heard about 5G. It's on the horizon. Deployment is actually expected, you know, again, it's that magic year 2020. But there are some that are already out there saying, yeah, we're deploying 5G, we're testing it today, we're playing around with it. But until 5G really settles down, we have to take a step back and say, okay, well, we're just going to stay in the loop, make sure that we're connected to the carriers, make sure we're connected to those driving the technology advancements within the 5G arena, as well as the various associations and organizations that are driving all of that, like 3GPP. But between really the LTE-U, you know, kind of the advanced Wi-Fi on the carrier side and 5G in 2020, you're also going to have Cloud RAN, right? So that's something we also have to look at, is the virtualization of network capacity and the virtualization of networks in and of themselves, right? So I'm excited about that, but those are all things that we have to factor in as our engineers, as our R&D department continue to develop new solutions or advance the solutions that we already have in place. We have to take all of those things into consideration.
And I guess it's a challenge because, as you say, 5G is not defined yet, but
That's
obviously
right.
You need to test to make sure. So it's sort of like it's a loop. You need to be part of the game in order to help operators in the moment it's ready, and before it's ready, to make sure that a solution, a new technology, actually works as advertised. So how do you feel in that? You know, because you want to encourage, and at the same time you cannot, you know, it's not ready for prime time. It's not commercial.
Yeah, no, I mean, we want to encourage it, but we're basically a supplier, right? So our main objective is to make sure that we are partnering closely with, as I mentioned, with the carriers themselves. What are their roadmaps? What's going on with them? We've got to, I think that's just good supplier relationships with your clients, is to make sure that you're listening to them, that you're not just listening to them, but you have people, and we have teams that are actually dedicated to the various organizations and the various initiatives, including heterogeneous networks in and of itself, right? And their responsibility is to keep a pulse on what's going on, what's tested, where we are. We attend all the events. We attend all the 5G expos. All the HetNet expos, CTIA, and as part of that, it's not just going to exhibit our wares, but it's also to network with everybody else that's in the industry that's driving a lot of these advancements. So that's what we are doing today.
Mm-hmm. And you were mentioning 2020 before for 5G. Do you think that there's going to be one date when 5G will become commercial? Or is it going to be? I'm sort of getting the impression there's going to be a lot of incremental changes, and
Sure.
as you were saying, there are incremental changes across the board. It's not just the radio interface; it's virtualization,
Yep.
CPAN, MEC, you name it.
Yeah, well, we all remember the 4G, when it came on board, right? There were a lot of them that said, yeah, this is 4G, but it really wasn't 4G, it was 3.5G, right? But they called it 4G because it achieved 4G speeds, right? And really, this is all about speed. Even 5G is all about speed, as well as efficiency, right? Mm-hmm. But I agree completely with you. I think 5G is incremental. That's why a lot of it's going on. There's a lot of people already saying that they're out there launching it. And in fact they may be, but is it really going to be what's finally called 5G is very doubtful. I think we've got several more conversations across the various groups that define the advancements of the different technologies, not just small cells and those that are driving those technologies, but also DAS and also Wi-Fi, right? So it's a big conversation that's going on now. It's got to continue to go on. And I think to your point, we'll see a little bit by little bit. Let's keep in mind, 2020 is, like I said at the outset, it's just 4 years away. And actually less than 4 years. So January 1st, 2020, are we going to have 5G? Very doubtful that we will have the final version of 5G by that time. Who knows? It could happen even before that. But I'm not seeing it. This industry moves slow.
We will see. Todd, well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for your time.
And thanks to all of you for listening in. This was a conversation for a report on densification by Sense of Healy and done in collaboration with RCR Wireless News. Thank you all.